when you grew up, for whatever reasons, you really didn't know that there was an Annis Israel, that there was another synagogue.
Yeah.
And,
Okay, go ahead.
so, if you could talk a little about that.
Okay.
I will ask whatever I think is relevant, but
Okay, and then I'll talk about that, and then talk about what it was like in Temple Youth.
sure,
That-
that would be great.
Okay. Just before you, okay,
Yeah,
let me ask a
this
couple
could
of
go
questions. I mean, some other stuff that I didn't talk about, but maybe you don't want to enlarge anymore. I mean, about, the Jewish Community Center.
I think at this point, the focus
Is the temple.
will hopefully be the temple.
Alrighty,
Yeah.
okay.
And the move, and you were talking a little bit about, some of the rabbis and, whether kids who grew up in the temple kind of saw themselves as Jewish and,
Of course they did.
I don't know.
Well, first of all, you didn't have a lot of converts around in those days. They were Jewish,
Not the converts.
No, there were very few converts. Don't know of any. I wasn't aware of any. I mean, there was a family in the temple who was known not to be Jewish, and I don't know why they came there. I mean, they came and they were there for a couple of years and they left. But, okay, are we rolling? Okay. So I grew up in Temple Anshe Sholem, and when I was a kid, it was on Houston Street in the old temple. That was a very warm community of multi-generational community, and it was in many ways a large extended family. I felt very comfortable there. Everybody knew who I was, and they could always recognize me because I looked like my mother. And it was a happy place. We went to services Friday nights, not Saturdays. They didn't have Shabbat services on Saturdays in those years. The Sunday school was on Sunday mornings. The older kids went at about 9:30 and had an hour of Hebrew, and then the younger kids joined in at about 10:30 for religious education, such as it was. It was mostly about the holidays, and it was kind of the same thing every year. When I was about 11, the new temple was built, and that was a real turning point. I think the number of members increased by that time. Just to go back a bit, the three famous rabbis, Rabbi Feldman of Hamilton, who was here for many decades. He wasn't there by the time I came on the scene. The first rabbi that I remember is Rabbi Fackenheim, and then Rabbi Baskin. And it was Rabbi Baskin who really was the man behind the new temple in Westdale. So Temple Youth became a very important thing in our lives when we got to be teenagers, and you had to be 15 to be a member of Temple Youth, which I think was rather old. But it was great. The Temple Youth group was the youth group in the city, and we used to have dances with live bands, and everybody in the city came to those dances and looked forward to them because there wasn't a whole lot of excitement in Hamilton in those days, I think. And for me, Temple Youth was my ticket to the outside world because I had the opportunity to go to all sorts of youth group events in Toronto, Buffalo, Rochester, and even as far as Wisconsin to the National Federation of Temple Youth Institute in Oconomowoc, Wisconsin. One thing I remember is that in the days when we were on Houston Street on the high holidays, there was always a lot of toing and froing between the Beth Jacob, which was where the old City Hall is, and many of us went back and forth several times on those days. So I think a lot of people maybe were members of both the temple and the Beth Jacob, which was at that time Orthodox. I, as a child, was certainly not aware of any other synagogue in Hamilton. I wasn't aware of the Addis, Israel at all. It wasn't on my radar screen, though it certainly is now. And it's not that I ever heard anything negative about it, I just never heard about it. I was totally unaware of its existence. We were very comfortable growing up as Jews in Hamilton. In my public school class, there were never more than 2 Jewish kids, but we were perfectly comfortable. There was really no anti-Semitism. There was a certain amount of anti-Protestantism from Catholic kids in the Catholic schools, but I don't remember any anti-Semitic incidents, and I don't remember any insecurities about being Jewish. I was always a very proud Jew, and I mean, in our family there was always much discussion around the dinner table about Jewish matters throughout the world, and I didn't hear about the Holocaust, by the way, either when I was a small child, except that, yes, when some of the young people who were orphaned in Europe, a group of them did come to Hamilton, and I do remember that, and I was probably about 6 years old at the time, and that was a very emotional thing for everybody to welcome these young people into our community.